talking about the GI. Kim, what's GI? It's Saturday morning. There is no rest in heaven. Gastrointestinal. Very good. Gastro-intestinal. And where does it run from where to where? Simone.
From the mouth to the anus.
To the anus. Call it with pride. We all have it.
Yeah.
From the mouth to the anus. Does it have branches anywhere?
No. It's a straight. It's a straight.
It has lots of girls, but the urine also is part of that overall GI tract, right? For pee extracts, number 1 and number 2. You do them still, right? Number 1 and number 2.
Yes.
Huh? I know, we got to do that because the minute you stop doing it, you're dead. Okay. It is the most important biological architecture in the body. Why is it the most important biological architecture in the body? Victor, why is it?
Because it breaks down everything.
No, you're jumping.
Okay.
What is the number 1 reason why it is the most important architecture in the body?
Fuels everything. It fuels everything.
Correct. It's at the core of fueling the vehicle. Right? Your car without fuel is it a car?
It is when you can't drive it.
It can't be a car if you can't drive it. It's what? A sitting room. It's a sitting room, right? So the fuel architecture flows through the GI. One of the most important function in keeping this body alive, right? For air, for water, and for foods, right? So let me pass you out the handouts. This is where we're going to start today. So we're going to start on this page. And you know that if you're going to be my student, then you know there is always an exam at the end. And there are prizes if you pass the exam. I know most of you don't like exams, but you're going to be submitting to my exams, okay? Let's start on page 1. The GI tract affects the entire body. Look at what it does to the brain. Stress, anxiety, depression, insomnia, right? That's why when you can't sleep, we go to start in your GI. That's why when you're depressed, we go to find out what you're eating, right? All of those things are very important in ensuring that we get the right stuff going. Look at your skin. All those skin problems that Western culture gives you medication for is actually because of problems in your GI tract. Acne, rosacea, or whatever they pronounce it, eczema. In Africa, we don't have that R1. We have the eczema one and the psoriasis, right? We are running clinical research on all this stuff upstairs and giving medication for it. Thyroid, Graves' disease, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, and weight fluctuation, right? We are all challenged by those issues. Liver, non-alcoholic fatty disease, toxic burden. Overall health, migraines, fatigue, low energy, nutrient malabsorption, obesity, constipation, diarrhea. Cardiometabolic, heart disease, increased visceral fat, type 1 diabetes, atherosclerosis, and type 2, immune system. So I can just go on. If you look at all these problems, it covers the whole spectrum of chronic illness.
Can we just add to the brain cognition?
Yes, well, they didn't want to go deep, right? Then people will begin, see, they're trying to keep the English at a normal level, right? So there are 5 things that we explore as we look at the overall architecture. I know I didn't staple this correctly, so you will see that the picture connects on that page. It starts on this page, the pillars of the GI, right? And We start with digestion and absorption, then elimination and detox. Then on the next page, the other two functions, which is microbial balance, barrier function. We're going to walk through that a bit slowly because it is really important that you understand those four. There's a fifth one, but we'll talk about that later. So let's start with the first one, which is an absorption, right? Just very quickly. So there is a reason why I talk about pay attention, because I'm going to use language I'm going to test you later and you might not know. All right, so let's check now. Victor, what's the difference between macronutrients and micronutrients?
Besides your size.
Yes, besides. Yeah, you're being very smart. He knows at least one is small, one is big. Okay, what is different about them?
Comparing your minerals and your vitamins is
What is that? Minerals and vitamins are what?
your essential minerals that you need.
They're micronutrients. All right, and that's why we try to, and that's why we have regulations on the control of that. Do we have a printed copy of that? Why is it not there? Grab me a printed copy. That's why we talk about this all the time, right? That you need to have, right? That you need to have, you know, I've distributed this a lot. Your vitamins and minerals are micronutrients. Typically, in the old culture, they would come from the food. Why doesn't that happen anymore, sir?
Too much processed food and too much depleted soil.
So when people tell me that they're eating well, what do you think I say to them? What are you eating well? It's coming from soil that's depleted. I've said this before again and again. My grandfather used to leave the farm, a plot, fallow for 7 years. And that's enough time for the soil to regenerate itself. And you can see over those 7 years what's actually happening to that plot. It starts all dried out. Then by the next year, you see little grass begin to grow. And by the 7th year, the vegetation has fully returned with all the earthworms and everything. Now it's ready for another farming for 7 years. Then you go through another fallowing for 7 years, right? And typically, we start that farming process with planting legumes, things that are gonna put minerals back into the soil, right? There is a whole system to this process that we lost because we got civilized and went to cities. Okay? So when we're looking at digestion and absorption, it is very important that you understand macronutrients and micronutrients and the challenges of trying to get all those things into the body. Okay? Not going to go into a lot of details, but I just wanted you to get that. Now is the challenge, right? That's why I buy 91 gas. Why is 91 gas different from 87 gas, Simon? No, let me ask Per, who doesn't buy gas anymore. Per, tell us why. You don't know. Per, next time Simon stops at a gas station, ask Simon, why are you putting 87 and not 91? And Simon will say, I was putting 91. Why do you use 91?
We use
89.
89 because those are the instructions that come with the car.
Oh, okay. What is the difference between 87, 89, and 91?
Yeah, because 91 has less lead.
So there are less deposits in the engine and in the exhaust, right? So the new performance cars tend to use 91 gas. It's more efficient, it's cleaner fuel. And you should buy from Shell.
Yeah, I want to add something else. Lead, why they deposit lead in the gas? To make the noise less.
For the engine, correct, yes. Okay. All right, so elimination and detox. So these are two important words that we need to know. Elimination, but the point is that there is something left even after elimination. And so in most cultures, right, my grandfather detoxed us every Saturday. I didn't know that. First of all, my mother, they will give us castor oil in the morning. And then my mother will prepare lunch or dinner made of bitter leaf soup. And that's a special leaf that's bitter, that they wash it and it loses the bitter taste. And once you eat that thing, plus the castor oil, you're in the toilet and everything is cleaned out. Right? It's amazing. And I hated it. Because I had to go to the bathroom sometimes. By the time I almost finished the castor oil, we're lining up. And that's how we would expel tapeworms and worms and everything, because you take castor oil. You cannot imagine how many Americans today have tapeworms and worms in their stomach, especially considering the amount of sugar we consume. It's amazing. I'm serious. In the village, they already knew about that. So this whole issue of elimination and detox is a very important issue, right? This guy had a tapeworm that was 15 feet long in the stomach. I know.
It's a snake.
A medical
It's not a worm.
Emergency.
no. You buy 2 pills.
I thought.
One was a tapeworm. You take the tapeworm. And then when you lose enough weight, you take the other pill to kill the tapeworm.
Oh, really?
People actually do that to lose weight. Yeah, that,
Really?
Well, yeah, the people that actually tapeworm in their
They
stomach
really?
lose weight.
You know the guys that
Because
go around with
organic.
horse-drawn,
Yes.
horse-drawn carts that were selling snake oil and whatnot?
Oh, they used to do
That
that?
would be one of the things.
Oh, really? Amazing. I didn't know that.
Killed all kinds of people. Because they lose the second pill.
Exactly. And so the tapeworm grows and takes over the... Yes, the host.
Alien.
All right. All right. So they say, if you look down there, they say the skin is your largest detox organ. Toxins and unwanted stuff can be excreted through the skin through sweating. So if you don't sweat, you're leaving all the toxins inside your body. So sweating is actually a good thing. I know in Western culture, people are embarrassed by sweating. In Africa, we're not. And that's why you shower all the time, because it's so hot and you're sweating all the time, right? Sweating is a very good thing. I know women hate it because of the hot flash and things like that, but it's actually a good thing. Secondly, the liver is a critical organ for detox and eliminating toxins. So that's why you saw that non-alcoholic fatty liver disease when toxins actually accumulate and begin to damage the liver. Okay, let's go to the next one, which is the microbial balance. Talk to us about the microbial balance, Jad. What is the microbial balance? You've been here enough for me to appoint you assistant professor.
Next time. Okay.
No, Kim is offering to teach us that segment.
Yes.
It's there.
It's there.
It's in here.
Tell us, what is the microbial balance?
Aren't about 60% of the actual cells in your body critters?
Good, yeah, but you're going too far. Narrow, digestive tract. You're on the right track, but you went too big.
Too big.
Mm-hmm.
The biome in your stomach is responsible
It's an
for
organism.
for all your health, basically.
All right. So he's on the point, right? So the bacteria,
Yeah.
or what he calls critters, the bacteria in our gut has to be balanced, the good and the bad. So when we run your GI results, as we've been discussing all week, it's important that we find that balance. As he alluded, you must have bacteria inside of you. We live together. If your body had no bacteria, you'll be dead. the bacteria, they call it oh my God. Huh?
Ecosystem.
Yes, the ecosystem is supportive.
Symbiotic.
Oh, yes, man, you were in my biology class. It's symbiosis.
Yeah.
We feed each other. There are some that are parasitic. Okay, now we're in biology class. Dr. Yi, you are going to answer this question. What's the difference between symbiosis and parasitic? Okay, Dr. Yi says no.
Symbiosis lives together, parasitic is by itself.
One's feeding off
Fight
the other
each other.
in a non-mutually beneficial way.
Correct. Did you get that? So the bacteria in our stomach, some are symbiotic. We feed them and they feed us by breaking down the food. And there are others that are parasitic, the bad ones who are just there taking advantage of the ride. Okay, it's very important that we understand, and that's the bacterial balance that is critical inside our body, and that we get that right. Okay, the other one, Victor, you could feel this coming your way. Barrier function. What is barrier function, Victor? There's a picture there next in that diagram to show you what it is.
It's a line, a barrier where you have limits that are established where everybody does their whole job.
I like how he is playing with the language. I love it, Victor. You are just like skirting the surface of the answer. Very good.
Democrat.
Yeah, like a Democrat. You sounded really liberal there. I love it. Okay. So,
It's like what goes in doesn't go out. It's the same.
no, that's not true. It is exactly what he was saying. It's a very fine, thin line that knows what should go in and what should go out. It's properly managed. But it's very thin. It's a one-cell layer.
Yeah.
Very thin. That's how all the good nutrients are absorbed, and that's how the excretions, the things that have to come out, are excreted, right?
Also keeps the bad critters from getting into your bloodstream.
Correct. All right. That's why leaky gut is such a big issue. The barrier function. That's why most people have leaky gut, because it is very challenging to keep that barrier function with real integrity. Guys, very important. Okay? So even though we do patches, it is important to keep the barrier function in place, right? Okay, any questions on that? You know I'm taking this really slow, guys. It's very important that we understand the most important architecture in the body. And so when I start talking about detox, right, Simon, I'm not just trying to sell products. I'm trying to make you understand that a medically supervised detox 2 or 3 times or 4 times a year is very, very important for all of us. Why? Because we're not living in the village. Your car has lots of chemicals. Your house has lots of chemicals. You walk into Walmart, there's a sign at the door that this store has chemicals that are carcinogenic.
It's a Prop 65.
Well, but it is the truth.
Yeah. So does Starbucks.
Yeah, they're telling...
It's required by law to Prop 65.
No, I know, but that's not the issue. The issue is that you are in the presence of carcinogens.
Yeah.
That's what they're warning you about. So if you're afraid of carcinogens, don't come in.
Yeah.
But because we go in, we have to detox.
Signs on the door at McDonald's too.
I know. Well, that's the point I'm making. The signs are everywhere. Just because they put the sign doesn't mean you're safe.
No.
They're just telling you what it is. Okay? So let's look at this page quickly. I think that's the right page.
Yeah.
So when we run your stool effects, everybody here has done their stool, right?
Yes.
Simone, your parents have all done your stool analysis?
I've done mine. They haven't done.
Why not? Our stool solution is very cheap. You should do it.
Well, he's just sent his off.
Oh, you just sent yours off?
Yeah, he hasn't done.
All right. But do you guys
He's going to have his done on the 5th.
do you guys take probiotics?
Yes, we do.
All right. Well, because if you do take probiotics, then you don't really, and prebiotics, and you eat fiber and you eat well, because that is really very important. Because what I speak here is that it's better for you to spend the money on the preventing than to spend the money testing.
Correct.
Right? Because if you're buying the fibers, the organics, the probiotics, and all of that, then that is very, very good for you. Plus detoxing. Then you don't really need to be testing. And your poo is coming out like my poo twice a day. Very easy. No like this.
Do that again.
Jad?
Do you have that on camera?
Victor?
Everything catch in camera.
Victor, no squeezing and frowning at the wall. It comes out naturally, right? Grace, no squeezing and calling your husband for help. Right.
You'll be viral on Facebook.
I know, right? Just doing it gently like a real monk. It comes out. So if it's not coming out that gently, then we got a problem, right?
I taking the probiotic. Same time I take the fiber. Do I have to take the fiber?
It's fine. It's fine. It's okay. So if you take the fiber and you take the probiotic, it's fine because they're all just going to help with the repopulation. Okay, nice question. Jad, you're an assistant professor. Why do we take fiber, Jad?
To feed the good bacteria, to make the...
Jad! Soon Jad should be running class.
Yeah.
Very good, Jad. Very good. You heard what Jad said. The fiber is really to allow the bacteria to really grow and create its symbiotic architecture. Very important. So lots of notes here. I'm not going to go through all of it. But let's just look at a couple of things that the stool analysis does. It gives you a high-level result for three major interpretations, right? The four pillars. It looks at the commensal balance, that's another way to say the bacterial balance, and the relative abundance. Then it looks at your inflammation and immune function. It looks at your gut microbiome, and so it does a lot of other things. But we are running a couple of studies upstairs now. Let's go to that yellow part on that page. IBS. What's IBS, Victor? Tell us.
Irritable bowel syndrome.
Irritable bowel syndrome. Do you know how many Americans have that?
Probably 80%.
But there's another upper class of it. So this we were at the lower class. We now have IBD. What is IBD?
Dysfunction.
Yeah, well, what is the I and the B?
Irritable bowel.
Now we move from distress to dysfunction, right? And then there's another one there. Immune-mediated inflammatory disease. You see all these diseases that we have? We go to the doctor and we're like, which drug? And then they have to design some stupid drug. Then look at psychiatric disorders such as major depression and anxiety. Then what she was saying about neurobehavioral disorders, right? All this,
Including autism.
yeah, including autism. Thank you. If we said that, I might get arrested by the pharmaceutical police. That we can cure autism with diet, right? Okay, so let's look at the four big pillars when we do the testing. It's on the next page. The four big pillars, right? So we're looking for infections. Why are we looking for infections in the GI tract?
It's the incubator. That's where everything starts.
It's your first line of
Maybe
defense.
the infection make irritation to your internal body.
Correct. Actually, pathogens are always present in our stomach. The question is how much? Okay? Yeah, they're always present. So when we run your stool, we see a lot of different pathogens that are just part of your microbiome, right? It's always there. And actually, it also depends on where you were born, how you eat, the environment that you are, all of that architects that microbiome. So the bacteria that we have in our stomach is different from the bacteria that people in China have in their stomach. Or the ecosystem of the symbiotic and the parasitic bacteria would be very different. Victor, are you okay?
I'm wonderful. I'm connecting dots. I'm wondering, because aloe vera comes to mind when you're talking about this.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been around for, I don't know, 10,000 years.
Correct.
And I'm seeing its importance as you're speaking, so
Correct.
I'm connecting dots.
Yes. Okay. The second one is inflammation. Again, why is it that I always talk about inflammation? Jad, Professor Jad, don't run away just because I'm calling on you a lot today, okay? You still need to come. Simon.
It's the fire within you.
Yeah, but why specifically with the GI do we're looking at inflammation? Can you just check outside why there's a car blipping? Guys, you always need to pay attention. We have guests here.
They've stolen.
No, we just, because, we're behind Walmart, it's not a very safe area. So kids are always playing there.
An immune response to inflammation.
Correct. So because we always have infections here, and there's the immune reaction, because that's the largest immune architecture in our body. When the inflammation is too high, we know something is really wrong. So it's a big indicator for us that something is very wrong when the inflammation is very high. Okay? Then there's the issue of insufficiency. When we are looking at insufficiency, what would we be thinking is insufficient when we look at the gut? Come on, guys, talk to me. What would we be measure that you think would be insufficient when we are looking at the gut, at your poo? What would we be looking at that should be more and it is not enough?
Fiber.
Fiber is one.
Good bacteria,
Good bacteria,
showing that there's an excess.
yes.
Water and the hard stuff.
What is water and the hard stuff?
How
Really,
much
it's
the
soft.
percentage?
Of the water that's in the poo? Oh, yes. What else? You're missing two things.
Fats.
Exactly.
Proteins.
Well, no, not
Vitamins,
that. It's but no, that would be measured somewhere else. But that is a good one. What else? There's one that is lasting, living. What is that other one?
Enzymes.
The enzymes that break proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. Now we're going to find out what their names are. What is the name of the proteins that break down proteins?
Proteinase.
Yeah, proteases. What is the enzymes that break down fats? Lipase. And the enzyme that breaks down carbohydrates? Let's give a gift to Grace. Amylases. Very good, Grace. Very good. Very good. Thank you, Grace. Those three enzymes are really, really critical for digestion. And there's a diagram I'm going to show you in another slide that will show you the acidity, the alkalinity. Because don't forget that digestion and absorption are chemical reactions, right?
Yep.
Right?
Yes.
Sorry, I know most of you in your chemical class didn't do very well because you were running and hiding and kissing girls in the bathroom. But when you see a CH3, that's a plus, and a CO3, which is a negative, and there's the barrier, we are looking at a negative positive pull across, so that's going that way, and the CO3 is coming this way. This is the barrier function, right? The same thing happens at the cellular. So absorption and digestion is all about the pluses and the negatives in terms of acidity or alkalinity, or the pluses and the negatives, the ions. That's how everything works. That's how God designed it, right? So it's a big chemical reaction. So we're going to see those enzymes which are enabling. Okay, now the question, what is an enzyme? We know what hormones are. What are hormones?
It's like messengers to go.
They are messengers. Okay, what are enzymes?
Soldier?
The activity.
They are catalysts.
Catalyst?
Okay, what is the difference, guys? This is very important. We're at the core of chemistry. What is a messenger and what is a catalyst? What does a catalyst do?
Exactly.
Do the job.
It does what the messenger tells it to do.
Yeah, the messenger is telling it, but what is the role of a catalyst?
To start the process.
One. Number two, to stop the process. Number three,
To get it going.
to accelerate or to decelerate. It's like a driver.
Yeah.
To start, to stop, to accelerate or to decelerate. Right?
Yeah.
Catalysts are very, very important, right? I know in Chemistry 101 you all escaped, but this is important stuff for us to really get to understand, right? All right, and then there's the imbalance. We've talked about that. Let's turn to the next page. So it goes into detail to talk about this. I'm giving you all these notes so you're going to take home. But if you get to the page that says page 4, that has that first table, right? You begin to see the bacteria that needs to be present and the diseases that show what those bacteria are present like. So when we look at IBS, what did we say IBS was?
Irritable
Bowel syndrome. The syndrome is not the disease. The syndrome is the beginning of the disease. Then when you have the disease, IBD, then when you have high blood pressure. So by just reading, very important guys, by reading your bacterial architecture, we can begin to tell what kinds of what we're calling clinical associations. So people who have autoimmune disease, that's how their bacterial profile is going to show up. Right? The arrow means that it's elevated above the normal. Right? That's what the arrow up means. That it's elevated above the normal. Right? And if you turn to the next page, you will see those biomarkers. They have the food breakdowns. They have all of those things. In those people, it's highly elevated also. Look at type 2 diabetes, chronic fatigue syndrome, right? So a couple of our patients recently, when you look at their pancreatic elastase, it is all down. When it is down and it's showing you those conditions, what do you think it should be? It should be up. Sorry, I know it's kind of a trick question. Thank you, Simon. It should be up. And when it is up and it's a bad thing, what should it be?
Yeah.
Exactly. Right? So these reports are easy to read. Right? So don't dismiss it as something, oh, it's too difficult for me. This is important for you to know. Okay? It's so that doctors don't just start giving you medication and making you do things that you don't understand. Okay? That's why we do all of these tests so that we can get all our patients educated and then they can take action. The rest are just the different kinds of reports that we run, right? So that you would just understand what those things are. We've now finished our first handout. Any questions? We're going to the second handout. Any questions? Am I a tough teacher? I should be. I'm an African. I'm going to crack the whip on your asses so that you become responsible and accountable Americans, right? So you don't blame other people if your stomach is not working well. It is your fault. Nobody forces you to eat what you're not supposed to eat, right? You should be aware, you should eat properly. I just came from the farmer's market. Actually, I bought some very amazing
Where's the pastry?
organic cakes from the farmer's market. It's in my car. I'm going to bring it out. At least once a week, you should indulge yourselves,
Where's the cake?
right?
So instead of having soup, cake.
I don't want you to. You have to enjoy life. I know Simone is like a whip cracker, right? Once in a while, we need to enjoy life, right, Per? Per is agreeing with me. Once in a while, we need to enjoy life. Can't be cracking the whip all. All right, let's go on this, and then I'll go bring the cakes. So we're still on this subject, but now we're going to look at exciting diagrams. Yeah, those are all the sample reports that we run. Typically, when you run Genova with us, you get a lot of detailed reports. We're also looking at a new company called Metabolic Code. We're going to run some tests because we think that at least once in a while, you should have the baseline data.
Yeah.
So that you actually know what your
Are
microbiome
you
looks
keeping
like.
test subjects?
No, I'm not. Because they have to pay. Sorry. All right, so we're going to start here. So just look at that whole thing that happens there. Proper nutrient intake. So when we say nutrient intake, Victor, what comes to mind? No, I gave you the answer before.
The vitamins and your minerals.
Supplements.
No, macronutrients and micronutrients. So when you see the word nutrients, it's both kinds of nutrients, okay? All right, very important. What is intercellular signaling? Okay, so this is something that has just been discovered, that one of the biggest triggers to health is the signal of food. What is the other one? Food is one of the most important signals. What is the second? No, actually it's a second. What is the first important signal to human life?
Oxygen?
Heal.
No, it's light.
Light.
Oh, right.
Actually, light
Therapy.
sets the human clock. Also, food, as a secondary signal, sets the human clock for metabolism. Right? So, controlling when you eat is a very important control to your health. That's why intermittent fasting is becoming a very important aspect to good health, or fasting as itself. Because the food signaling is a very important aspect to our overall well-being and health. There are many of us who cannot control our food desire. And so our food signaling capability is crushed, right? That's why they ran this test. Certain people ate only during daylight hours, and certain people ate whenever they chose the same amount of calories. The people who ate anytime they chose had almost 50% extra weight from the same amount of calories. So there is a very important issue about eating in a certain time. So intercellular signaling is a very important issue. So that's why it is generally said that you should try and eat often. That doesn't mean you should eat a lot. Because typically, if you don't eat and you go, that's why typically it has to go low calorie and intermittent fasting. Because if you go eat a lot during the day, only a lot of calories, the body is going to store it as fat. Is that making sense, guys? So just because we say eat during daylight doesn't mean that you eat the whole world, right? So low calorie and intermittent fasting actually go together. And the only way to achieve a low caloric diet is how?
Eating high nutrient food.
What does that mean? It means eating low carbohydrates.
Yeah.
That's what it means. Why? Because at the center of modern day life, we don't have enough movement. Movement is a critical function of how we consume calories, right? Now let's go to the next. So we take the food, there's the signaling, then these three things happen. Let's look at them. And that is what the signaling is really about. The enteric nervous system contributes to motility, nutrient handling, and gastric acid secretion.
Where are you seeing that?
On the bottom.
On the bottom. Sorry, everybody has that page, right?
Yes.
Yeah, on the bottom here. I'm reading it down there. Can you read it? Then the hormonal, the gastrin stimulates secretion of pepsinogen, secretin stimulates secretion of bile, and cholecalcitonin secretes release of digestive enzymes. And then the paracrine, these molecules help influence motility and secretion. I know this is an interesting word. What is motility? Google it, please. What is motility? It's a very important word. Motility.
Okay, what's
The
motility?
ability of an organism to move independently using metabolic energy.
Yes. So actually, in this case, motility is about moving the food down the GI tract. Do you understand? It's not like you do like this. Look at, to move the food. The food moves by itself. That's motility. How it moves from your mouth down the throat into the stomach.
The gravity.
It's not gravity. It is a hormonal thing.
Like this.
Yeah, imagine all that circular architecture.
Yeah.
Motility is the architecture that's moving all of that stuff down this complex architecture. Right? It's a very important aspect. And that comes, it's the nervous system by twitching the different parts of the system moves the food along.
The peristalsis.
Yes. Wow, she paid attention when she was in class. Okay? So we have histamine that's stimulating acid secretion. Somatostatin inhibits acid and pepsinogen secretion. And then there's the B12. Why is B12 mentioned as the only vitamin that's mentioned there?
Because you need energy to do all of this.
Correct, but B12, yes, is at the core of the folate architecture, which really is driving the overall metabolic architecture, right? So let's look at some pictures of the overall digestive tract. They didn't bother to show your mouth because they know you're going to swallow, right? Because that's the only part of motility that we actually do. We swallow, isn't it?
Yes.
You have to choose.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Actually, the mouth is the first step to digest food.
Correct, it starts there.
Enzymes.
Yeah.
Saliva,
It's breaking down.
everything.
Yes. Not everything. It's just breaking the food into little
Especially
pieces.
the banana.
And that, yes, that's why they said you should chew how many times?
And
100 times. He's paying attention, he's an assistant professor.
I
You
would
chew 100 times. How many times do you chew, Simon?
Not enough.
I like that answer.
Not enough.
Okay. So do you see what's happening in the stomach? That we need to first deal with the protein at the top as the bile salts are released. You're seeing at the top of the diagram. And then we're absorbing all those iodines, fluorides, all those minerals. Then the triglycerides. What are triglycerides, Victor? They're fats. All right. So after we've dealt with the protein metabolism at the top, are you seeing that diagram? Pay attention, guys. Then we move to the fat metabolism. Then we begin to move to the carbohydrate metabolism, the disaccharides. What is a disaccharide? And the monoglycerides, right? So you begin to see that as things are being broken, they're being absorbed, they're being broken, they're being absorbed, they're being broken. That's really what's going on there. They're being absorbed, they're being broken, they're being absorbed, right? Until we get to that jejunum. And the jejunum is structured that way because it wants to make sure that things stay in the stomach for longer before they start flowing into the intestines, right? And then move all the way down. So it shows you where things are being absorbed and how they are being broken down, right? So when we then measure your stool and we see things that should have been absorbed that are in the stool, then we know you're suffering from what big word that I used earlier?
Leaky gut.
No, a malabsorption. Are we getting all of this, guys? Very important. But then, as she said, when we see things that are not supposed to be there, that are in the bloodstream, that's when we know what's going on. Leaky gut, that you have a gut gap for things coming out of the bloodstream that are not supposed to be in the gut. That's how we test for leaky gut. And we have a test for that where we are looking at zonulin and the other things that are supposed to be inside the lining of the intestines that are now present in the gut. Then we know there is an integrity issue. There's a break in your gut architecture. Are we getting this stuff, guys? All right, let's turn to the next page so we can look at a more amazing diagram. Okay, so we can now see the bile secretion and the flow of the bile. So number one, what triggered the bile to start producing?
Eating.
No, yes, well, intercellular signaling,
The message.
right? The neural, remember?
Yeah.
The stimulation of the bile, secretin stimulates secretion of the bile, right? It was on that previous page. So secreted bile salts consist of 95% newly synthesized bile salts. Because don't forget that bile salt is really very critical. It's fed back into the bile, into the liver, so that it can produce and store and break down all the things that it's so critical for breaking down proteins and things, right? So you see the overall passage. So it releases most of the bile into the duodenum. Number two, 95% of bile salts are reabsorbed by the small intestines. Number three, reabsorbed bile salts are recycled by enterophatic circulation through the vein. That vein carries everything back from the colon and small intestines back into the liver. And then the liver filters everything. That's why the liver is like the workhorse of the digestive architecture. Liver is so fundamental to human life because that is where it filters everything, right? And so detoxing and cleansing of the liver is really a critical point for us. It's like a flush, right? When you're driving an old car, you have to go flush a couple of times, right? And so it is important that we do an understanding of that. Let's turn to the next page. Focus mostly on the diagrams, right? So let's look at, we all know what pH is, right? What is pH?
Potential hydrogen.
Yes, but what is it? What does pH tell us?
The level of acidity.
The level of acidity. That's what pH is. It's the level of but he's right. It's a hydrogen issue presentation. So it is the level of acidity. And the lower the number, the more acidic. The higher the number, the more alkalinic. Right? So let's look at the top of the stomach. It is 0 to 10 with a pH of 2. Very acidic. But imagine these bad boys bacteria, that's where they live. Look at them. Those are the things the doctor would tell you you're suffering from. Candida, Clostridioides, H. pylori, Lactobacillus, Streptococcus. These are the bad boys. Really bad boys. When you look at what are these cognitive issues here? When you look at great people who are Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, dementia, a lot of them have challenges with those levels of bacteria. Okay? They are supposed to be there, but they have to be in the right amount. These are the really bad boys. And they tend to be at the source of colorectal cancer. So measuring your stool is also really important. Like me, I don't do colonoscopy because I'm concerned about puncture, except it's done by a good surgeon. Therefore, I need to make sure that I cleanse, I detox, and I take a lot of probiotics. Because if you're cleaning that, you don't need people inserting stuff down the line, because sometimes they go and cause punctures, right? So it's very important. And if there's blood in your stool, you want to quickly increase the probiotics and the prebiotics so that the body will naturally get rid of those polyps and drop them out of your body. Very, very important in restructuring the gut integrity. Okay, guys? Let's look at the next level, the duodenum. Do you see how the acidity has dropped from 2 to 4 and 6? Then the bacteria change based on the environment, right? The bad boys are beginning to reduce. Then we go to the next level, which is the colon, right? And it drops to 5 to 7. Then you see the jejunum to 4 and 7. Then you see the distal ileum and the proximal ileum 6 to 7. And by the time you get to the large intestines, it's already moving to the 8, 9, 10. It's very alkalinic. So when your poo is very smelly, it is because it is very acidic. And that's an indication that two things have happened. The poo has been too long inside you. Therefore, the bacterial colonies have really accumulated. Or you have more of the bad bacteria, which reside in the acidic area. Is that making sense?
Yes.
Poo should be smelly, but you understand when it is really smelly. There are some people I walk into the bathroom, like in airports or places, and I cannot breathe. That's something is wrong, right? And so, but also if you ate cheese for dinner and things like that, you should appreciate that it's going to be a bit smelly. But if it is very smelly all the time, typically autistic children have very smelly poo, or people with schizophrenia. And it is really because of the concentration of that bacteria that lives in the acidic areas. Okay? Are we good?
Yes.
So you always need to check. Smell your poo. It's your poo. Right? Right, Victor? Victor, do you smell your poo? You don't look like you smell your poo, Victor. Because you're too tall, you can't bend.
I was wondering though, because people have had gallbladders removed. I guess they might have a problem with gas sometimes.
Because it changes the
that's
architecture.
stress.
Yeah.
I mean,
That might be a problem. I'm not aware about people who've been removed gallbladders, how their poo smells. I'm not aware. It's something I would.
that's excuse me.
Oh, really?
I know 3 different people.
Oh, wow.
I heard that from a doctor, that's why.
Okay, let's look at stress. So you see, the stress is actually coming from inflammation. Right, the intercellular signals. And it comes from the gastric motility and the colonic motility. You see that motility word I wanted you to Google? The colon is pulling and the gastric is pushing. That's the way the poo moves. You always wondered, right? Did you ever know, Per, how your poo moves? Well, you see, you found out. The yeah, I know, right? The gastric is pushing through those neuronal signals and the colon is pulling. Right? So the diagram there. And so all these nerves are involved. Look at the architecture that's driving that pulling and pushing. Right? And so when you have a gut problem, or what we call dysbiosis, or you have membrane permeability, which is leaky gut, it causes this upregulation that causes inflammation, and then you now have a kind of stress that comes from inflammation. This is the kind of stress you don't even know that you have, but it's a very bad stress. So when you don't fix your GI, you have this stress, because there are actually 4 kinds of stress I've taught you before. Who's ready to support the professor in defining the 4 kinds of stress? Jad is not looking happy.
They have this problem long term.
So there are 4 sources of stress. There are 4.
Emotion.
That's perceived stress. Perceived stress. That's the emotional stress.
Lifestyle?
No. Sleep. Circadian. When you don't sleep well, it causes stress. We just saw one other one, inflammation. I'm gonna give a prize to the person who gets the 4th one.
Sleep, inflammation.
About physical.
No. That's in perceived.
That's interesting.
It's sugar, glycemic. Sugar, the overall metabolism of sugar, and insulin resistance. So these are the 4 places where stress comes from. That's why we talk about chronic stress.
Yeah.
So you might think that you're fine, your perceived stress might be low, but that's why we spend so much time here working on sleep. Because it's one of the biggest sources of stress. If you're not sleeping well, you're not fine. It doesn't matter if you say, oh, I'm fine on 4 hours of sleep. That's bullshit. Clear bullshit. You need to sleep 8 hours. Reducing the inflammation from the gut is really critical on reducing overall chronic stress on the body. And just not eating sugar or carbohydrates really balances that glucose architecture and really then calms down the body. And chronic stress is a significant contributor to chronic illness. So it's not just that, and we manage perceived stress by managing our appetites. You cannot have everything you want, right? That's how you manage your perceived stress. Then sleep. I know that Kim is managing a lot. With a lot of monitors, we have different things, Fitbit and things to manage, and really give you supporting nutrients to help with that. We all have challenging lives, so it's important that we do that. Why a lot of people are eating bad food? Because they need comfort, because overall they have stressful lives. And that's why people are eating bad food. Carbohydrates is comfort food, right? Even in Africa, we know that. When it's raining, you want to eat things that give you energy, right? Heavy food. Or nutrient dense, as you were saying. And then the glycemic issue It's just that our metabolism is so tuned in that if the sugar is too low or too high, we have a problem. So what's the excuse? Just don't stay in the carbohydrate phase, stay in the protein and fat phase, because they have enough sugar in them themselves, right? Okay, is that making sense?
Yeah.
I was spending time on this stress issue because stress is really a very important issue on health, okay? And I want you to understand that. So let's now talk about detox and what they call the 5R approach. Very high level. So the 5R approach is, well, before I get into the 5R approach, let's talk about something else that is critical. So you know, most of the time I've been talking about the gut. Sorry, this pen I need to throw away. I've been talking about just the gut, from the mouth to the stomach to the anus, right? But one of the things we forget about the gut is the gut-brain barrier. So when inflammation increases here in the stomach, really, or across all of that, and we have leaky gut and things are escaping in there, they go and violate this barrier, the blood-brain barrier. So once it's in your blood, it gets into your brain. And that's why we have a lot of the cognitive issues. Okay? The infections, the parasites, all of those things, they begin to, addictions, they begin to go affect your brain. And so overall you have brain fog and all the other illnesses that begin to show up. And the reason I wanted to mention that is because it says here that the second paragraph of the 5R approach says, over the past decade, the 4R approach has been the model of GI health restoration for the functional medicine community. In recent years, a 5th R, rebalance, has been added, representing the importance of addressing the HPA gut-brain connection. Essentially, the 5R approach is a stepwise process to rebuild the pillars of GI health. We spoke about the 4 pillars of GI health, right? What were the 4 pillars? It's in your notes. Number 1 is what? No. The 4 pillars of GI health in your previous notepad.
Digestion, absorption, elimination, detoxification, microbalance, and barrier function.
Correct. Those is very important. Yeah. That's really at the core of the GI. That's why I give you the notes. And how do you fix it? It's using these 5 steps. Number 1 is to remove, to promote elimination and detox. So that's why we put that poo picture in our toilet. You need to start pooing well. And how are you going to do that? Probiotics, prebiotics, detox. That's how you remove, right? Then you replace. How are you going to replace? You want to promote digestion and absorption. You want to make sure that, first of all, you're taking supplements that will give you good absorption, whether they are liposomal, liquid, subliminal, whatever works for you. You want to make you're actually absorbing the nutrients. And some people are actually taking extra enzymes, right? Like digestimes, to help with the breakdown of the food, right? Then you want to re-inoculate, which is the microbial balance. That's why we take the probiotics. You want to repair barrier function. We have a lot of supplements for the repair of the mucosa layer. I was looking at one the other day. That's it. Yeah, we have this one, the GI Replenish. It's support for the management of compromised gut function with digestive disorders, including malabsorption, right? So we have a lot of things that support that. There was one here for, that's a prebiotic. Yeah. So this one is a digestine. I thought there was something else here. I can't remember where it is. There was one here for the mucosal. Yes. So this is the mucosal support supplement. And the mucosa is that layer that really protects the cell. It's like, like phlegm. It's like that little thing. How many people have actually cleaned the intestines? How many cultures eat intestines? So when you take the intestines, it's always covered by a film. Yeah. So when we put hot water on it to clean it, you're cleaning away the mucosa, right? If you've ever ate intestines, you will see it on the mucosa, right? That's what we clean away before you can actually, then the intestines show up white because you've removed the mucosa, right? And that mucosa is very important because it protects the overall single cell layer from having leaky gut, right? And then we need to rebalance by doing all the things. So I thought we should look at some dietary templates as we end this, and we're going to walk through these different dietary templates that are, with so many options, choosing an appropriate dietary template for patients suffering from GI dysfunction can be challenging. The following dietary chart compares the details with some dietary possibilities, creates clinical considerations based on patients' needs, and shows why some compounds have been eliminated from certain templates. So let's look at Mediterranean. The Mediterranean diet is now the big diet that everybody is pushing for. If you look across that Mediterranean diet, it's really very, very low on carbohydrates. It has pastured meat, which is lean meat. You can have lean meat, vegetables, fruits, nuts and seeds, unrefined grains. What is an unrefined grain? Jad, Professor Jad. Oh. Victor, what's an unrefined grain?
It'd be a grain that probably has been processed with bleach.
No. That's refined grain. Unrefined grain. But okay, now that you went there, give us an example of a refined grain.
Rice. White rice.
Exactly. Yeah, white flour, right? So what is an example of an unrefined grain?
Brown rice,
No, rice that has husks. Brown rice is refined. The rice has to come with the husk. What else? Barley, yes, it has to come. Yeah. Or yes. How can you prove that it is not refined?
Still has a shell on it.
No. You can sprout it.
You can plant it.
Yeah.
No, actually put it in water. That's what I do with my beans.
Yeah.
I sprout it before I boil the beans. So I leave the beans in water for 2 days. Why do you sprout before you cook the beans?
It reduces carbohydrates,
One, but it does something else.
increases protein.
No, it breaks down the complex protein so it's available for absorption.
So it's easy when you cook it, it's softer.
I know but that's what the village people told you, but they didn't tell you the chemistry of why you sprout it.
It's just easier to cook.
Yeah, so you sprout even the barley before you cook it because it makes the complex proteins available and it breaks down the carbohydrates, right? That's why seeds are very, very important for us. It's a way in which nature stored food for winter or for planting, for the new seeds, right? It's nature's way of storing nutrients in seeds, right? Legumes, eggs, dairy. There are questions about some of this, but look at the traditional Western diet. And then look at the paleo. No carbohydrate in paleo, no legumes, no dairy, right? So if you have metabolic syndrome, that's what they recommend. If you're healthy, you can do the traditional. If you need an anti-inflammatory, you can do Mediterranean. So let's look at the other ones. When you have Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, autism, right? They remove certain things. So these are just clinical considerations. Then all of a sudden you look at ketogenic diets and you look at the impact on cognitive health. Neurological, sclerosis, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's should all be on ketogenic diets. No legumes, no refined, no grains. And for the dairy, they want only high-fat versions. Then for people who have autoimmune, those are the people who cannot eat anything. Look at, only fruits, vegetables, and meat, that's it. That is it. Isn't that serious? Then look at what we call, what is a full FODMAP diet? Google it. I want you to know what it is. What is FODMAP diet?
Derived from fermentable oligo, D, monosaccharides, and polyols.
Okay, so these are foods that are high in fermentation and storage, right? So there are friendly, and so you can see all the explanations there of those kinds of foods, okay? That's what we were going to talk about today. Then we were going to talk about the competition that we have that's going on with our team on patches. So we have a patch competition going on. So I still have some of those slides here. So pass it to people who don't have it. Vincent? So you might want to join our patch competition group.
No, I haven't.
Yeah, Vincent. Yes.
One's enough for us.
So we are on day 3, right?
No. Yes, today's day 3.
Yes, so we're on day 3.
Yes.
So I was just telling Simone that when we're introducing this to our patients in this way, to get really more effect, because a lot of the questions when people start doing the patches is, oh, well, what should I do it for? And we feel that a yin-yang balancing plus detox, including brain balancing, everybody needs that, right? So it's not just, except if you have pain, then we do pain extra, or if you have, but most people don't have any condition sometimes, and we just need to take them through a 10-day process, and that's what it shows. Okay, so so Victor, if you want to join that, you can join the group, and then you can start at any time, and then you just do day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, and we'll take you. So you have to buy a bundle of 6 patches, and we have a discount on that, right? I think it's buy 5, get 1 free. Something like that. Price that for them, okay? Anybody who wants that. And then we have a group where people are giving feedback. I have been using it, and it has really made me really calm. Really.
Facebook group?
No, it's a text group.
Like a
We-
WhatsApp?
No,
just create a text group and
Yeah, Yara is the one who created it. But Yara said some people don't have iPhones, so Yara is trying to put it on WhatsApp. Or
to do a text group as long as you have
no, because we did
The old group we created,
on iPhone.
everyone used the iMessage.
Yes, and then people who don't have iPhone couldn't join the group. Yeah, iPhone is crazy like that. Yeah, if you're not on the iPhone, you can't join the group because it's using iMessage. So perhaps create it on WhatsApp, and then
Then we can create a new group with a message.
I don't have WhatsApp.
you should use or Viper.
Yeah, you do it on WeChat. I have it. Yeah, I have WeChat.
All right. So, and what we're finding out is No, give me some feedback on that. What was he saying?
He was just given by David another place for Silent Night.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because some of the women were struggling with putting it in places where it drops off. For some reason, the things stick on my skin, but a lot of people complain that it's dropping off, especially when you put them here.
Yeah, because when you put lotion on it.
Lotion, yeah, we didn't know, we just found out, yeah, because when you put lotion, it will not do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you put them
You
on
can't put
before you
aloe
put
vera
lotion.
here when you put your moisturizer.
Exactly.
It
So
ends up on your,
yeah, yeah. So you put it here instead. Okay.
or here. You know.
Yeah. So those are the kinds of
That's
things.
why I was asking, because on the diagram, on the yin and yang, there's some of the patch you have to put on the top of your head. I said, I have hair, how's it gonna stay on the top of my head?
Yeah. So you put.
Yes.
Yeah.
You might not have that problem, but I do, I have hair, so what am I
Come to
supposed
me,
to do?
Andy.
Yeah, see.
Yeah. So you look for alternative places that you could put them,
Yeah.
and that is still effective. Yeah. There are
It's not gonna
certain
work.
critical
Yeah.
points that we would do it for. Okay. All right. Yeah. But anyway, Simone is going to provide advice once Simone's joined the group, because people have questions and things have been coming up, especially the issue of rashes. We found out that it was really the detoxing process, because I don't rash anymore.
Yeah.
Yes. After I've used it for like a week or a month now, my skin doesn't react to it anymore.
It
So
stopped.
yeah, it stopped. Same thing for you too?
Yeah.
Well, I stopped using the X39 right now because of the 5 days.
Yeah.
After that, I'll use it again, then I'll see. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, it stopped.
Yeah. It stopped. Yeah, I'm not having.
Sometimes some people get a rash because they leave it on too long.
Yes. All right, let me go bring the cake. Thank you guys for a wonderful. Any questions before I go bring the cake, and you can have some sweets for your only sweet for the week? Are we good? Thank you. Thank you.